innovative financing, and Water Sector Trust Fund will have 15 minutes. We will scale down the minutes because of time to present the role of Water Sector Trust Fund in innovative financing. So we are looking at financing, but there are other models, and that is why we are calling it innovative. There's a new thinking, there's a total paradigm shift. You are aware that in 2014, this country attained the middle income status, and that means we are no longer eligible, according to the World Bank and other multilateral financing institutions, to access grants. They have shifted to LDCs, less developed countries. So that means we also have to come up with an innovative ways of financing our water and sanitation infrastructure. So WSTF will tell us that, then we move to, we'll have the health break of 45 minutes. Then we come and continue with the same theme of today, and we'll have a number of financial institutions that are listed there. So I'm aware that Family Bank is not here, but Cooperative Bank has joined us. Where is Cooperative Bank? Do you have a representative of Cooperative Bank? I want to believe that by that time they'll be here. As soon as we are done with that, then we'll transit into the closing ceremony. So if we are able to keep time, because I'm finding this to be a challenge here, and it's important that we keep time. The more we delay to arrive here, the more we also delay our chances of leaving here early. But would love that by 1 p.m. we have concluded the activities of this conference. Then we have our lunch. Then at your own pleasure, without pressure, you can exit the town. But I know the leaders of this county will tell you should not exit the town or the city of champions. I'm told this is a place that when you walk for 5 minutes, you meet a champion. How many have met a champion? That you can't walk for 5 minutes without meeting a champion. Wangapi wamekutana na champion? Ama tumekaa tuweka kama mimi vile nimekaa. Mimi sijatoka hapa tangu nikuje. But I'm told if you walk just within this great county, after every 5 minutes, you will meet a champion, the likes of Kemboi and others. Nakumbuka ile baba yao, ile anafanyanga saini ya Usain Bolt, huku ndio kwao. So without much ado, I want to request a volunteer to put us before the Almighty God. If you have the microphone, who is inspired this morning, kindly let us be upstanding. Just by a show of hands, then the microphone will reach you. Okay. Nimeona hapa. Bring it here.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, in the mighty name of our Lord Jesus, we thank you for this good morning you've given unto us. Thank you for your protection throughout the whole night. King of glory, we are starting this session. We commit it before you. For every discussion that is going to be done in this place, we pray for your guidance. And I pray that Jehovah Master, even as we finish, all the glory shall be unto you. For this I pray in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. The representative of the MD Murang'a South, kindly step forward. Kindly join me in appreciating him as he comes. Kindly assist him with the microphone. You will present from where I'm standing here. Can just shift and come this side. You have 15 minutes.
Good morning. I am John Macharia, the Technical Manager, Murang'a South, and I will be presenting something on performance-based contract. And basically, the concept of this performance-based contracting. This is a result-based contracting method, and it focuses mainly on three things. One is the input. The second one is the quality, and the third one is the deliverables. I'm speaking as I am waiting for the slides to be shown. And basically, the performance-based contracting for non-revenue is just a concept that is designed to increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of the distribution system and also on other related operations. So when we talk of the performance-based contracting, it is just a result-oriented contract that is actually focusing on issues to deal with the input, quality, and the deliverables. Maybe the slides. As we are waiting for the slides, I can take you through the process under which the PBC is usually undertaken. The first thing we do when we come to the PBC is development of the proposal. As from the WSP, you want to reduce maybe non-revenue, but what is the proposal that you are having in reducing it? Maybe you want to do metering. Is it going to solve your non-revenue? You want to change the infrastructure. Is it going to solve? So those are some of the issues that you usually check on, and then you develop a proposal. Once you develop the proposal, the other thing that you go for is expression of interest. Because if you don't express or you don't raise an expression of interest maybe to the interested investors, who is likely to assist you to solve this? Because you know, when it comes to the performance-based contracting, we can go to the next slide, kindly. This is what I mean, that we are doing the expression of interest. And the reason as to why we are doing this is to ensure that at least there is going to be some investors who are going to volunteer and are going to be interested in solving the same solution that you are seeking for. And then number three, when you have been able to do the expression of interest, maybe you will find you are having about 10 investors who are willing to partner with you. What do you do next? Then you do what we call market sounding. Market sounding is just selling your point to those investors so that they can be in a position to assist you as you wish. And then from there, you start the procurement method, normally, and after the procurement method is the implementation. After the implementation, it's just a matter of payment to the investor or to the operator who you will have given those works. Next slide. This is just a demonstration of the concentration of our PBC in Murang'a South, the area that we concentrated on. Despite the fact we are operating a very big area within the Murang'a County, we decided to concentrate on a very small area called Keno Kabati. For the next slide, you will see that there are some preconditions that we followed so that we can be in a position to check or to take the Keno area. One of the key areas, because this is an urban center, and our revenue actually, like 40% of it comes from this small town. And therefore we thought this is likely to be an input, or it is going to help us to increase our revenue if we can concentrate on it. And therefore what we did, we checked on the connections that were there. In that small area, we had about 2159 connections. And out of that connection, the only one that were active were 1944. The others, you well know, as I know. For non-revenue, our estimate was standing at 60%. Reason being, we had not done the metering for those areas. But there are some key components that we are checking from our end that we are interested in. that we needed to create DMAs. We need to solve the issues of leak and leak detection and repairs. We wanted to regularize the unauthorized connections. We wanted to do some meter relocation, because you find some of the times some connection will be light at the homestead and these people can do any bypass, and you find at the end of the day that will be a result of non-revenue. Then we also needed to do some new connection and some extension, and we also required some transfer of the skills to the WSP so that we can be in a position to solve further areas. Getting to the next slide, we had the expectation that we are seeking as the WSP, and also from the operator that we are working with, there was also some expectation. And the key thing that we're interested in, our estimate of non-revenue upside, it was 60%, but we wanted it to go to below 30%. It was ambitious, but we had to go with it. Then, this reduction of from 60 to 30%, we decided that's going to be done gradually per year, and therefore with the operator that we are working with, we had to do some moderation to see how much is going to be reduced for each and every year, and also for each and every month. Then from there, we wanted up an operator who was willing to invest about 5 to 10 million within that DMA area, and we also were looking forward to doing about 800 new connections, and we also required GS mapping for the area. From our end, it was expected that we are going to give full support to the investor or to the operator, so that we can be in a position to reduce those unauthorized connection and also improve the efficiencies. For the contract that we were doing, it was 3 years plus 1, and this 1 year was just if need be. That is, if the operator will not be in a position to achieve his investment, then we could do that. This is just but a show of the concentration of the connections that we are dealing with. You will see there are some green and also some blue connections. Those green connections were the existing, but for the blue connection, well, the blue are the potentials. And the reason as to why we did this is so that we can be in a position to know if we are to do the connection, how many would we do that. Getting to the current status today, we have been in a position, if you see here, we reduced the non-revenue from 52 to 37%. Remember my statement I've told you, our estimate was 60% non-revenue. But after doing the metering and putting all the master meters, we found that the non-revenue actually was 52. And so far, we have been in a position to reduce that 52% up to 37%. At the same time, currently the operator is being paid as per the contract agreement, and our agreement is simple. It is only being paid 75% of the revenue above the baseline data that we had. The knowledge transfer, this is an ongoing activity. For the challenges that we have encountered, the PBC awareness, it's a new concept. Even to the WSP and to the investors, it is not something that we really understand it. And therefore, there is need for more clarification and market sounding, since the project is 100% of investment by the contractor or the investor. Number two, the investors' experience. We are going to the investors, and they don't understand this non-revenue. And therefore, what you're expecting is that it is we are all of us running. And therefore, there is need for us to understand each other. There is need for us to engage so that we can be position to reduce this non-revenue. The other key thing is the baseline data. If you don't have the baseline data of whatever you are doing, anything can happen. The contractor might come, or the investor can come and tell you, we just need to change all these meters. And you say it's going to solve your non-revenue. But maybe your pipeline system is the issue. So at the end of the day, you will find you are likely to be in a trouble. The other key thing is the political environment. The county governments are very key in this particular implementation, because we usually require no objection in implementation of these projects. And if the county governments are not actually in support of the same, the PBC project might not really work accordingly. On the reasons that we have learned as Murang'a South in implementation of our project, one key thing is the proposal development. And this key issue is, you have to be clear with what you want to be done in your area. Because if you give room to the investor, anything can happen. They can do anything, and they tell you it is going to be a solution. But Is it going to solve your problem? Number two is the market sounding. Actually, if you do a proposal and you don't market it, or you don't create an awareness even to the investors on whatever you intend to be done, it's likely to be an issue to you. At the end of the day, the WSP maybe will require some experience, even if it is from the development partners, such that we can run from the best practices that has been done in other PBCs, if not in Kenya, in any other country, and they have really worked. That will be an input. The other thing is contract development or contract formulation. The key thing is that it's a new concept. So even the condition we are putting there, we are putting it to favor us or to favor the investor. But you find at the end of the day, the WSP will be keen to safeguard itself. But the investor also wants to be safeguarded. At the end of the day, you have to strike a balance. But can we have a good, a developed contract that can be of assistance to WSP even as we implement this PBC? The other key thing is the baseline studies. This is the basic data under which you are going to enter into contract with your investor. For example, if you come to an investor and you tell him that you are having an unleavened yield of 30%, how sure is he that it is 30%? He will tell you, me, I don't understand. I hope it is 40. And then, at the end of the day, you will end up arguing that it is, you give the long data and you give. So you have to give a loan maybe for about 2 to 3 months. We are going to do a baseline study together, you as the implementer and also the investor. But at the end of the day, you need maybe to have a third eye who is going to in a position to assist you in implementation of the same and then dosing those baseline data. From Murang'a South, we were lucky. We were being assisted by WASPA Africa, and we were able to achieve accordingly. So basically, those are the learning lessons that we have learned as Murang'a South. And in terms of the implementation of the PBC, and I appreciate you so much for listening to us. Thank you.
To exit the podium, I still need you here. At this juncture, let me take this opportunity to invite the panelists. I'll start with Engineer Njaga, the Director Licensing, Standards and Advocacy from WASREB. Assist me to appreciate engineer as he comes. Karibu sana Mohandisi. Then in equal measure, I want to invite Abdi Wario from Gatsby Africa, which was formerly Kenya Market Trust. I've been told we have apologies from Water Resource Group 2030, the World Bank. But I'm told there is a PPC operator. Maybe Wario, you can assist me to unbundle. Who is this? Earthview. Okay. Kaloki, I'm told you are part of this. Kindly join us here so that you give us your. Maybe to start with, I'll start from the regulatory perspective. I know we have various forms of contracts, management contracts, and I know a few years ago, these worked in Malindi. And in that arrangement, we found that the non-revenue water of Malindi water went down up to acceptable levels. And this is more of a phenomena that has not been understood within the presence of the public sector, and there has been a lot of push and pull. We saw the other day an arrangement which was not quite clear, and it was fought viciously and ferociously by staff of Nairobi Water. Maybe from the regulatory perspective, the regulator has really been engaged on this matter, even at the PPP unit, which is anchored at Treasury. Maybe to help us illuminate on performance-based contracting, I would invite Engineer Njaga, and kindly let me be assisted with the microphone so that you give us some insights, some illumination vis-a-vis the successes that have been registered by Murang'a South.
Thank you, moderator, and good morning, everybody. To start with, I think I want to laud Murang'a South for getting into this uncharted space. I know they are more or less like the pioneers, and when you get in this kind of space, then there are a lot of challenges. So we think we need to congratulate them for that. But we need to ask ourselves, why are we talking about PBC in non-revenue water management? We are talking about PBC because if you look at the performance of this country in terms of water losses, in the last 10 years, you saw it in impact, we presented it the other week. We've almost been, the graph has been flat. We've been around 40. 43, 44, 45, 47, we've been around there. In terms of monetary losses, we are losing Kenya shilling 10.5 billion annually. And you and me know what that can do. So the question in the regulator has always been, if we continue to deal with non-revenue water issues the way we are likely, with the way we have dealt with it traditionally, are we expected to get any results? We have targets of getting less than 30% to 25% by in the next few years by 2030. But all indications are from the graph that we are most likely to remain the same. And hence, they need to try to do things differently. In fact, they say that if you continue to do things the same way, you cannot then expect different results, and hence this performance-based contracting. WASPA has engaged with the 2030 Water Resource Group. We've been working very closely to develop the performance-based contracting. And in the last 2 months, we've carried out 3 sensitization workshops, one in Kisumu, Nakuru, and the other one in Mombasa. And some of you may have come in, and you saw the experts that we tried to bring in. But why PBC? If you look at the way we have handled the traditional non-revenue water issues, we've been just looking at the input. You have an area where you have got very high non-revenue water, and then what do you say? You say you want pipe replacement. Sometimes you say you want to bring in new meters. And then when all that is done, what happens? Sometimes you find even your non-revenue water goes up, but still you have to end up paying that contractor. So non-revenue water is a performance in contract system whereby you are paying that contractor based on outputs, not input. You go to Keno area, and I hope and trust that Murang'a, that's how you went about it. You did a baseline and found that, yes, our non-revenue water is 60%, but the task we are giving you here, we are giving you to bring it down to, say, 40%. So you pay them based on those achievements. So when it comes to contracting, the contracting is not the normal one, it's a little bit complicated, and that's why WASREB is stepping in to help develop those. Because as you pay the contractor, you pay the contractor in 2 components. There's a fixed component, and then there's a variable component that is based on performance. That's how you do it. And as Murang'a South said, it's a new area, and this is where we want to build capacity as WASREB with support of 2030 Water Resource Group to give utilities the capability to do that. We have sampled a few utilities that we think are a potential for non-revenue water and performance-based contracting. And I'm sure if you're here, you've seen those experts come around there. And we'll soon be getting into this area. But now, let's be honest to ourselves. That really, PBC remains an option of dealing with non-revenue water. And PBC does not mean taking away the responsibility of water service provision from the company. It does not mean retrenchment or taking away our operators. When we sampled it, like 3 years ago when we started talking about that, we found a lot of resistance. Others were saying, what do you do to the staff? Others saying, you are bringing in private players. PBC, the utility still maintains control of water supply in these areas. Utility sets the targets. Some of the utility staff may have to work with the contractor for transfer of knowledge or capacity building. So PBC is something we need to embrace moving forward. I also want to add that considering that we still have a very huge financing gap in the sector, we have to start to think of where do we get additional money from. Moderator, I'm laying the ground for the next presentation. Utilities have got to think outside the box. They've got to think about innovative financing, and they can only be innovative, be able to access this blended financing if they are operating in an efficient way. So, reducing non-revenue water, using the latest technique, as we are discussing about automated metering infrastructure, all these have great potential to help us, close down on the financing gap that we have. But we realize that we do not have any regulatory guidance, and I want to say here that by the end of this year, coming next financial year, WASPA will be preparing a regulatory guidance, especially to do with the customer engagement guidelines, so that we can strengthen utilities as they engage in this automated metering or in digitalization. So what we've been discussing here is very key, and it could also form part of the PBC, performance-based contracting. Thank you, Chair. That's what I give chance to my colleagues.
Thank you, Regulator. Why don't we appreciate him? Well put. Now, Gatsby Africa, formerly KMT, has been key in supporting the sector in dealing with and one of the major inefficiencies is non-revenue water. Maybe step by step, you can lay it out to the audience how Gatsby Africa has supported performance-based contracting, especially the case of Murang'a South. Microphone to Mr. Wario, please.
Thank you very much. As you have said, and this has been alluded by Engineer Njaga, PBC is a new idea in the water sector. And hence, there is opportunities and constraints on both sides of the divide. When I say on both sides of the divide, I mean the utility and also the supplier, in this case, the operator. So what we did as Gatsby Africa, first of all, was to build the capacity of Murang'a South to show interest in performance-based contracting. And to address some of the fears Engineer Njaga has said, for instance, bringing on board private sector who will take over their space, staff redundancy, we had to address all those fears, because up to this point, and this can be confirmed by the technical manager from Murang'a South, there is no staffs who have been laid. In fact, they have stayed in that area. It's only recently that they have been fully transferred to other areas. So one was to build the confidence of Murang'a South that the private sector is not coming to take over your function. Number two is then to support Murang'a South to understand that to procure a private operator, you have to undergo through a different procurement process. Remember, Engineer Njaga and also the technical manager have clearly said, performance-based contracting is largely an output-based. It's not an input-based kind of contract. So most utilities, if you look at your procurement processes, you normally use the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act when you are procuring for input. So that is another thing that we had to undertake with utilities. Then once that was very clear, we had to engage in the process of now developing the expression of interest. And this has been alluded by the technical manager. Once that was done, of course, market sounding, bringing the suppliers together. Because as I've said, the capacity gaps is on both sides, the supplier and also the demand. And hence preparing the supply side on the different expectation. Remember, engineer has said there is the base fee and the variable fee. And most contractors are used to the conventional way of doing stuff. Once that was done, then GA had to support Muranga South to do an in-depth feasibility assessment. And this also included the customer identification survey, doing a detailed feasibility assessment, continue building the capacity of Muranga South. But the most fundamental thing that we have learned in this entire process in terms of performance-based contracting is relationship management. Much of our time has been consumed in terms of managing relationship between the contractor and the company. Because you realize that the company and the contractor from the word go had different incentive. And hence bringing this incentive together was very, very fundamental. And at times because of this difference, you tend to realize there's a bit of conflict. So because I believe in the rule of 3, perhaps I've said more than 3 points. Let me stop at this as you digest those 3 points or more.
Thank you, Wario. Why don't we appreciate him? At this juncture, I want to invite Bwana Kaloki from Earthview to give us his experience in this new journey that is confronted with a number of opportunity and constraints, as has been alluded by Wario. What has your journey been in this PBC, especially with reference to Muranga South?
Thank you very much. My name is Charles Kaloki, the MD of Earthview Management Limited. We appreciate the opportunity that we have been given by Muranga South to be able to go into this risky area, which is a very new area of performance-based contracting. This process began, and as it has been explained by the technical manager, it was a journey of all of us learning. It was a journey for all of us learning. The issue that has been raised by the engineer, WASREP, those are real very important issues which you have raised on performance-based contracting. It is an opportunity that gives can be able to create an alternative way of providing finances into the water company, and also being able to deal with the issues of procurement, because the moment now you are in that area, you're able to make fast decisions and you're able to move forward. But there have been challenges that have been there, and I want to highlight about maybe 7 challenges. That one, I think, is unvalidated baseline data. Unvalidated baseline data. So as it has been said by Mr. Masharia, when we went in, the contract was based on 60%. Now, when we began 60%, and we have begun the contract, then there was issue, is it 60% or is it less? Now that took maybe about a long time to really come up with what is actually the truth. What is actually the truth? So you see, that time the operator is investing, but earning nothing, because you are dealing with a period where you are dealing with unvalidated baseline data in terms of the numbers of customers, in terms of the billing data, in terms of the what are the non-revenue amount, the percent. So this is an area which I would really say that for anyone going to the PBC, maybe there should be another project before the real project begins, of really getting the baseline data first, which must be correct position. The next thing which I think you have raised is the operator's terms. This contract was only based on one term, variable component. And I must say that from the investor side, it has been quite very expensive because you are only having one variable component, and there was no fixed component. So in terms of investment, then you find that the investor has invested so much before anything can come out. And for then, in that situation, then if you are dealing with a variable component only, then you cannot be able to do it within 3 years. It has to be done maybe within 6 or 7 years. At least minimum 5 years, if it is only variable component. Because as it were, at the moment, we can say of a truth that within that 3 years, we have not been able to return our investments. We are far below that. And that is because we are only operating on variable component. So that's an area which need to be considered, and I was very happy the WASREP position of doing the two-way, the variable component and the fixed component. The other one, which is an issue really we have gone through, is culture change. As I think it has been brought about here, the culture change. I must say that we have faced resistance in terms of what the CEO is saying about people feeling that their jobs are going to be lost, people feeling that what are these people coming to do, people feeling that what are they doing? We can do what they were doing. You know, in fact, what they are doing is the same thing we are also doing. So we don't need them. But yet at the beginning you needed them, but when you start working, then you don't need them. So I think that resistance has been real. And then, of course, in terms of also the other one is expectations. I think that has been brought up by Mr. Ario. The private sector basically is profit-driven. Profit-driven. So you find that the expectation is maybe to move quickly, and then, of course, there's delays on the other side. Processes. Yeah, you find the processes also keep on delaying. You know, because if there's a process, for example, you have to install a chamber, it has to be validated by the teams. There may be a delay there. Then the next thing, which is there is a risk on return on investment. This is a real challenge that we need to be able to have a situation where risk on investment must be mitigated, especially from the operator side. What are the risks on return on investment on the investor side? So that factor need to be factored in the contracting, so that at least if the investor is investing this, and as the engineer said, maybe something happens. For example, like for our case here, we had 2 years of COVID. You know, something happens, and then the contract in this period, then you may not make it. What are the mitigation factors to ensure that the investors don't lose their investment in the process of helping in this relation? The last one, the other one is, of course, what has been brought about by Mr. Ario, relationships. How do we have the relationship management, the relationship challenges? I must say the Gatsby, Warrior, and team have played a great role really in mitigating. So in a process like this, I think it is important to have what we call a referee or what we call a relationship manager, so that at least at the end of the day, the expectations of both parties are managed. Thank you.
Now let me escalate it to the audience. I can take a set of questions, then bring in the panelists to respond to them, or if there are comments or compliments, so that we wind up this session. Number one. Yes. MD Shibo, number two. I'll take a set. Yes, that is number two. That will be number two. Number three. I can see Hesbon there. Then number four. I think that is enough. Let's start question number one, and if you are directing it to a specific panelist, you can mention.
Thank you, CEO. MD Sibo. Thank you, Muranga, for adventuring in a green area. My question would be, how did you agree on the targets with the operator? Because as you mentioned clearly, that at the beginning you developed a proposal and came up with activities to be implemented. But when you went to the ground, things might have changed, and there could be additional activities that were not envisaged in the proposal. Now, how did you agree with the operator that now this is what we are going to do, 1, 2? And secondly, now that the payment was only reliable on the variable cost, what will happen to the fixed asset that the contractor might have brought on board? For instance, if perhaps maybe replace lines and install some meters, and at the end of the contract, there's no results, and therefore no payment in such a situation, and yet there are some assets already on the ground. Will he carry away the meters and the pipelines, or what will really happen in this? Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Number 2. Sanitize, please.
Thank you. My name is David, and I also have a concern on the same. First is the procurement. I think GA had referred that it's outside the contracting cycle that we know, and we are driven by, or we are in reference to Public Procurement Act. So I don't know whether or how it will happen when now our auditors come to tell us that we are outside the law. So probably you can clarify on how you probably work out on that procurement cycle. The second one is on reference, the TOR of the investor. How did you develop the TOR, or what are the salient features specifically for the TOR for the investor, so that it can be the base for reference? Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3. I believe that is meant for Murang'a South. Thank you.
My name is Osborne. My question goes to WASREB. Thank you. We've noticed you are working with partners to develop tools for contracting, PBC contracting. My question is whether you envisage to play an active role other than just setting up the tools, because in the initial phase, like it has been alluded to by Wario, there's a bit of relation management and in balancing the interest of the private sector and the WSP. Perhaps also to get your thinking around the contracts. Will it be some form of adaptive contract? Because I know during implementation, situation change. So we envisage contract clauses, changing with the changing environment, something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Osborne. The last question.
Yes, good morning. My name is Mark de Blois, CEO of Upanda Limited. So I think first of all, my comment would also be it's good to see the lessons learned from both sides and the openness. I think that's very good for this discussion. I think my question would also be to Murang'a South particularly. You shared also a lot of the lessons. Maybe what are some of the positive takeaways that you've also seen? And would you be open, are you still interested to explore more PBCs for other areas in the future? What positives do you see in that space?
Thank you, de Blois. Maybe we start with Murang'a South. You have a number of loaded questions. I hope you wrote them.
Thank you. My first question that was raised by MD Simbo, the key thing was the agreement on the targets between us and the operator. The key thing is that after developing the proposal, the operator had to first of all understand the proposal itself. And then afterwards, we did what we call the baseline studies, such that he be part of the studies and us, and also a third eye. And in this case, our third eye was the GASP Africa, such that if we see non-revenue is 30% or maybe 50%, how did we arrive to the 50%? He will be part of the same, and he will be in a position to endorse that that actually is the figure. We did what we call the custom identification survey, such that when we say that we have 2159 connections, he is actually sure that is the number. When we talk of potential connection, they are these, he is sure of that. So those are some of the things that we did until we came to the agreement in terms of target together with the operator. So the key thing was the baseline studies. There is an issue on the payment where we're saying that we have the variable component and not the fixed component. The beauty about the payments in our case, some of the costs to deal with the fixed items were offset by the assistance of the WASPA Africa, and therefore, whatever assets of the fixed asset have been done by the contractor, it is where we are coming to an agreement. Remember my presentation, I said it was 3 years plus 1. So, if the contractor has not been able to achieve or maybe to recoup the profit that he has injected, now we have a probable 1 year that we can be in a position to set a new terms under which he is going to recoup his target or his investment in the same area. For the number 3 and number 4, that will be answered by my great friend Wario. But I come to Upande, where you have asked about the positive takeaways. And from Murang'a South, what we can say is that there is a lot of financing in the PBC or from the investors, but there is also a gap between us reaching the same. So the key thing here is, yes, we can see the end of the tunnel, but the way to go to the end of the tunnel is still a challenge. So we need a clear way such that we can get to the end of the tunnel. Yes.
Wario to answer the next questions. Then we can come to Earthview, the operator.
Thank you very much. I think I need to make some clarification here. In the Kenyan laws, there are 2 acts that you can use to engage in any sort of procurement. There's the Public-Private Partnership Act of 2021. Remember, the original version was PPP Act 2013. But in 2021, there was the review of the PPP Act, and it was updated to reflect the devolution spirit and some of the lessons that we have learned out of PPP Act 2013. And then there's the Public Procurement and Disposal Act 2015. So the act that was used by Murang'a South is the Public Procurement and Disposal Act of 2016. What we had to do was to shift the mind of Murang'a South, because they have been using that act to undertake the conventional procurement. So it was done within that wider framework of Public Procurement and Disposal Act. And the main reason for that was that we realized that if you had to use the PPP Act of 2013, because by that time we didn't have the reviewed act, it will have taken very longer period. And we realized there's an opportunity within the existing Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act to pursue the same agenda. So it was done within the framework of that particular act. In terms of the TOR for the investor, what we had to do was that because PBC is a novel idea, we didn't have adequate capacity in the country, we had to engage the services of a consultant by the name Didier Caron. So Didier Caron came over from France. He supported KMT, or by then now GA, with Murang'a South to put together the TOR, to put together the contract, and we have learned our own lessons. And one of the key lessons is that factoring in the base fee, which is very fundamental. So the original contract did not have the base fee, it only had variable cost. So that is something that going forward has to be emphasized in any given PBC. Let me stop at that.
Let me conclude with the regulator so that he winds up the session. Let's have the operator first.
I think on the question of the gains, really, from the perspective where we are, number one, we are in the position to say that PBC is an option that can be really greatly turn up the country if it is well contracted, and it is something that we can support. We see positive change since the PBC area began this. We have now clarity on the customer identification survey that was achieved, that PBC area now clearly understands their customer. Then of course the mapping of the PBC area that was clearly has been done. Then no revenue change, as you have said, it is from 52, from 37 to 37. I think that is already, why is it? Is because you are really focusing on an area. And the other one is number 4, of course, creation of the DMS in the area. And then, of course, looking at the better visibility of the area as we target. And then, of course, lastly is that there is at least some PBC undertaking in this country, thanks to Muranga Water, that South, which was able to go ahead. And I think that begins a foundation, and for Earthview, we were able to take the risk to go ahead. It's also an opportunity that has given us to apply our technology in learning. So it is a place where private partners and the water companies can learn together and see how we can be able to improve the water sector. So I really appreciate it, and I really am happy that the WASREP want to support the same initiative. And I think what Wario has said, if it is well factored, then I think there will be gains, both of the operator and to the water company. Thank you.
Let's conclude with the regulator so that he winds it up for us.
Yeah, thank you.
We will request you, maybe Wario has something burning before you conclude. Our apologies, engineer.
They normally say the taste of the pudding is in the eating. And for very long, we've engaged in theoretical conversation around performance-based contracting. But we have now an experience, and there are 2 things take home that I want to emphasize. One is on the side of suppliers, and that is private operator. The most fundamental component of performance-based contracting is the element of knowledge transfer. In the case of Muranga South, we haven't witnessed that, because apparently, as we've said, PBC is a new concept, and hence the operator did not have sufficient, underline the word sufficient, though they had some experience in NRW management. And therefore, the clarion call to potential suppliers who are in the room, kindly take an opportunity to build your experience and your expertise in the space of NRW management. At times you realize that the case of Muranga South, the staff in Muranga South have got more experience than the operator, which is also an opportunity and also a challenge. Number 2 goes to the utilities. As we have said, this is not an opportunity to make your staff redundant. It's an opportunity to build and bring more investment and bring more knowledge. And hence, if there is an opportunity for performance-based contracting, don't put on the lens of saying we are being moved out of our space. So this is a great opportunity, grab it. But as we've said, there are challenges on both sides, and if those challenges are addressed, then PBC could be one of the options that we have in terms of addressing NRW. Thank you.
Thank you, Panawario.
Yeah, thank you. I think I would say from the onset that PBC by its own is not the solution to solving our non-revenue water. There are stages, you go through stages before you decide, is this a case for PBC or not? Sometime like slightly over 2 years ago, we carried out some sounding. We went to utilities, we also engaged with county governments. Are they willing to go that way? And we realized there was resistance, and I think that issue has come up, the question of culture change. In one of the incidents, when we engaged the utility on this, they straight away went to the union, and the issue started coming up through the union. It was even in the press. You must have read it, and the story that came out was Kampuni Inauzwa. We have read about these things. It was us trying to sound and find out what preparedness. We even engaged in one case, very high level engagement, probably at the governor level, and it was a straight no. Governor told us that cannot happen here. People are going to say that what all they have done is just the water company. Then we realized there was need to do a lot of create awareness, show them how it works on the benefits of PBC. And slightly over 1 month ago, we were engaging with the county governments, and we had 3 regional meetings in Kisumu, Nakuru, and Mombasa. And we found out now there is interest and quite a number are willing to go that way, and that was very positive. I think we are still working on the issue of culture change. When something new comes, you expect that kind of resistance. The issue came up with the contract, or which case qualifies for PBC. Before you decide which is the case for PBC, first of all you screen, and then as it was rightfully suggested, there's a small feasibility study that comes in. And after you do the feasibility study informs you or confirms, is this a case for PBC? If it is yes, then the next session is about contracting. The contracts are not the normal one that we are used to. You have got to be very careful. And I think that's why Gatsby had to bring in an expert from France, because the contract has also to take care of the well-being of the contractor. The Muranga one was very good. They just went straight away. Don't worry, you learn through making mistakes. So ideally, there should have been a fixed component and then a variable component. But some of the key things in PBC is the establishment of baseline data. And that's why you bring in a consultant to say, if you are contracting on reduction of non-revenue water, what is the actual figure? That is very key. That's where you begin. If you are contracting on increasing hours of supply, maybe you want to move to 24/7, maybe you have been about 15 or 10, then you have got to really get proper data that your current hours of supply is probably 10. You move in from that is very key, and that is normally established through a small consultancy. And then the other key thing is to talk to the staff, and that is very, very sensitive. You know how our unions sometimes react. You really need to do a lot of capacity building, create awareness to the staff, that really it is even making them more better because they are going to benefit from that knowledge transfer from the contractor doing PBC to the people there, and also reassure them that nothing will change, but most of all, that the operations of the company still remains under the company, and they are not taken away by the contractor doing the PBC. So those are very key elements. Now, moving forward, and you have seen from the discussion, you have seen the issues of contracting are coming up. People are wondering how do we go about it. WASPA is partnering with the 2030 Water Resource Group to develop regulatory guidance on the steps that you need to carry out to go PBC, what you need to check in, and also developing template contracts depending on what you're contracting. That is something we are currently doing with the 2030 Water Resource Group. Thank you.
Let's appreciate engineer and also appreciate the panel. I'll take a few seconds because it has been well summarized, and I think what is coming out clearly that there is need to build capacities of the utilities to embrace this concept of performance-based contracting. As engineer has put it, it is important to define what PBC is and at the same time define what it is not. And he has put it clearly because when the issue of a certain company came out, you find that there was misrepresentation of facts. And that one throws everything into jeopardy. Another important feature is the baseline survey. So data. So you realize that data analytics now also comes into play. What is the situational analysis of the targeted area that you are mapping? It has to be very clear. You have to define it clearly. And there are opportunities in terms of procurement. There is, we had the other, I think, which was repealed, the Public-Private Partnership Act 2013. It had a lot of red tape. I've not read through the 2021, but I want to believe those are some of the issues that we raised and also the county governments raised. Because it would be a long process. It would take even 5 years to secure that contract. And that is the life of a county government. So we have the two options, the Public Procurement and Disposal Act 2015 and the Public-Private Partnership Act 2021. So as we look into this, you have the experience of the private operator, because you have to look at the private sector. They are driven by profit. Water is a public good. We are talking of affordability. So the minimum time required for them to achieve return on investment, he's saying is a minimum of 5 years. So you find 3 years maybe in the short run, this may not work. So we are talking of a very long-term engagement. And the regulator is in the process of setting guidelines that would guide in terms of templates. And knowledge transfer is also important. We don't want to bring a consultant whose level of knowledge is a little bit lower than that of the staff. Then that means it will be difficult to operate in that environment. So knowledge transfer is key. And also I think benchmarking should not also be left out, because I know PBC has been successful in different parts of the continents. Are we able to check across the world and see what our peers have been doing? So I want to sum it up as that. Why don't we appreciate the panelists as they move, and the presenters? Now, as we transit to the next phase, we are not doing well in time, but I want to appreciate the presence of missions here, and we have the Israel Embassy, our partners, presented here by Polycarp. Do you have somewhere? Where is Polycarp? Kuja useme jambo from the People's Republic of Israel. We are working closely with them. Just say jambo. Can give him a microphone. Step forward so that you are captured well.
Morning. My name is
Maybe
Polycarp.
you can look into this. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Polycarp. I am the trade officer at the Embassy of Israel in charge of the water sector. As you all know, Israel has some of the best technologies in water development, and we are happy to be here. The mission is very new, so we thought we'd come here to interact with stakeholders, water utility companies, and distributors. I'd like to encourage you, if you want to reach out to Israel, companies that provide some of the best technologies, kindly reach out to our office. We'll be able to connect you. Just for the record, Israel's NRW is at 7% for the whole country. So there must be something they're doing good.
Clap for them.
So there must be something they're doing, and it's in the technology. The secret is in the technology. So we'd be very happy if you would be willing to travel there and to just see some of those technologies, and also if you'd be willing to cooperate with some of them towards reducing your NRW levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For utilities, for your information, we are working closely with the Israeli embassy, and I think during the month of October, we have 20 slots up for grabs. We'll be going to Israel for 1 week to sample some of those technologies. It will be both a technical and cultural tour. We can't step in Israel and fail to go to Jerusalem. We can't step in Israel and fail to go to Bethlehem. We'll have to reach there. It is part of the program. And if you are not from the utilities, nione nyuma ya tent, I'll tell you how to do it and how to get there. This is a continuous engagement, and we have a number of engagements around the globe. And I can tell you that we are excited this morning to announce. We said governance is a key issue, and I think we have received scholarship for 5 people who will be attending the Danish Technical University on water governance in the month of September. Thika is one of them, Athi, WASPA, Ruiru, and the Ministry of Water. Why don't we clap for them? It is fully loaded and fully paid, you can imagine. So all this is in the name of addressing some of these challenges. Knowledge management, knowledge transfer, so that we address some of these gaps and see what is it that our peers are doing that we are able to do. Because in Israeli, we are told that they are now harvesting water from the atmosphere. Did you know it is a fact that the amount of water that is in the moisture is more than all the rivers in the planet combined. Did you know that? So you've known this morning. It's a fact, check. So what Israelis are doing, they are harvesting that water from the atmosphere, only changing it from state, from the gaseous state to the liquid state. And even you find that the impurities that are there are not so much, so the quality of that water is different even in terms of treatment. You can just compare rainwater and these other sources of water. It is easier to deal with rainwater in terms of purification. So let's progress and proceed to the next stage. I think that was an interlude. Kayamba Africa mko wapi? Nisaidie kidogo. So the next presentation for 15 minutes, because we are not doing well in terms of time, is our lead institution on financing, Water Sector Trust Fund. We have the representative of the CEO in the room. Can you step forward? Where is he? As Kayamba gives us a jig. You want to put us on our feet for a minute? Kindly let us be upstanding. The room today is a quarter empty. Wengine nadhaona bado wajaamka. Aya, twende. A minute. Tumewangoja nyinyi. Thank you. Thank you, Kayamba Africa. Najua Kayamba mmetuweza, because most of us don't understand what is even being said. but najua mnaweka namba ingine. Nataka kila mtu atingize mabega. So let's proceed.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Silas Owiti. I'm a Principal Program Officer at Water Sector Trust Fund, and I'm representing our CEO who is not here. He was supposed to be here, but due to some engagements, he's not able to make it, though he was here when the conference was starting. So thank you. I'll be taking us through innovative financing models for water and sanitation in Kenya. So Water Fund, I'm sure most of you know, is a state corporation under the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. And our mandate is to assist in financing access to water, sanitation, and water resource management within the country. We target both urban and rural, and majorly on the underprivileged or underserved areas. We have our programs both in the rural departments, urban departments, water resource management, and also results-based financing. Water Fund, currently we've been undertaking some of the programs. We have the joint 6P program, which was targeting 6 counties, and currently that program has come to a close. We also have the Green Growth Employment Program, which also was targeting around 6 counties, majorly the ASAL counties, which also is coming to a close end of this month, that is today. We also, under the GGP program, we have Water and Livelihood Program, which was targeting majorly Turkana West, the refugees and the host communities. That program is also coming to a close this month or today. Then we have the Ending Drought Emergency Climate-Proofed Infrastructure Program, which is continuing up to 2024, and we have a closure period of 2 years. Then we have our baby, which is just kicking off, the Sustainable Management and Access to Water and Sanitation, what we call the SWASAP, which currently we had done the call for proposals. We are in the review process, so I'm sure most of the companies here did apply, and we are almost concluding the process to announce those who will be proceeding to the next stage. Then we have the urban project concept, which is in the 9th stage. That also is ongoing as we speak. Most of the companies here are doing the advertisements, they're doing the procurements, and that is ongoing. Then we have the UPSAP, that is upscaling basic sanitation for the urban poor. That also is ongoing as we speak. And also we have the Condition Liquidity Support Grant. This was supported by World Bank, and it was a response to the COVID-19 emergencies. This also, we are in the process of concluding this. It had some conditions, and we supported most of the WSPs in this room. Lastly, we have the results-based financing, which I'll talk about it in the next slide. So the programs I've talked about, majorly, there have been grants, though they have some conditions, but they have been grants. And Water Fund, as of late, introduced a concept where the county contribution, the counties have to contribute. So if you are working with the water companies, if you're working with the NGOs in that particular county, then there is a percentage that the counties have to contribute. And that is really helping so that the counties are on the projects, they own the implementation of the projects, they own the monitoring aspect of the project. But we are moving we have also been implementing output-based aid funding, where we have had engagements with our financiers, which is majorly in this case the World Bank. So we have an agreement with the World Bank, and also we have an agreement with water service providers. So this is kind of a subsidy that we provide to the water companies. Then we also work with the commercial lenders, where the commercial lenders give a kind of a loan to the water service providers. And the water service providers, in this case, pay back the loan. On the other side, we also have the consumers, which the water service providers implement this kind of infrastructure projects. And the consumers, of course, they pay. So the money that the consumers pay to the WSPs, that is what the WSPs use to pay back the loan. However, we have supported several companies under this. Of course, we have supported Kisumu Water, Nolturesh, Mudira, Naivasha, Murang'a South and Murang'a Town. We've also supported Embu, and we've supported Nyeri. We have worked with the Sidian Bank. In this, we have worked with Family Bank. We've worked with Cooperative Bank. And now we are moving to the loan facility model. We have been doing these grants, then we have been on output-based delivery, and now we are moving on to the loan. Because as you know, Kenya has moved to the middle income economy, and therefore more grants may not come. Though if they come to Water Fund, we'll still give them out. But we are moving on now to the loan. So under this kind of arrangement, we'll still be working with the development partners who will give us a seed capital. Then as they give us a seed capital, we are still going to work with the banks. The banks will have an arrangement with the water service providers. They'll also have an arrangement with the Water Sector Trust Fund. So the Water Sector Trust Fund will give a kind of seed or startup funds. Then the the banks will provide a loan to the water service providers. So in this case, the customers or the water service providers will pay back the loan to the banks, of course at a discounted or at an interest rate which has been negotiated. And then of course the customers will still pay for the connections. They will still pay for the monthly bills, application fees, and of course the water service providers will implement, of course, the projects. So this is kind of what we are moving to. Next slide. So as I have said, under this is now the blending. The other one was almost purely the loan facility, but this is now a blended kind of an arrangement where Water Sector Trust Fund may provide a half of the investment cost. So for example, if it's $1 million, then we have Water Sector Trust Fund providing a half, that is 50. Then we also have the financiers providing a half of it. Of course, the one for Water Fund is also a loan, but the rate is almost zero. Of course, the one from the banks, of course, at a negotiated rate, so they will still get an interest. Then, of course, the water utilities will pay back the loan. So they'll pay back to Water Fund, our 50 million, just an example, and to the banks or the financial sectors, they pay back the 50 million plus the interest, and the interest is negotiated. So this is kind of the arrangement that as a water sector we are moving towards, so that we have projects which are bankable, projects which can give the right outputs, projects which can support the WSPs to achieve their goals. So these are some of the risk measures that we are taking as water funds. We have the credit guarantees, we have the escrow account, We have the use of the contractors. We have the interim payment certificates. We have the government's water sector trust fund involvement through the blending. And of course, we have the tariff adjustments, of course, as recommended by the regulator. So these are some of the projects that we have supported under output-based. This was in Kisumu. There is a tank that we supported Kisumu Water to do. Next. This is a sewerage. This is a water treatment plant. Next. This is, of course, a household tap station. And of course, you can see what is happening on the background. Next. These are some of the facilities we supported. Nyeri Siwa, Nyeri, this is a Siwa pumping station. That is also a Siwa in Embu. And of late, in 2019, and of course 2021, through these programs, that is the output-based aid program, and also the upscaling basic sanitation, the urban poor, which is the ABSA, Water Sector Trust Fund. Of course, we implement with our implementers, has been able to achieve or get these awards. So thank you. That marks the end of my presentation.
I'll invite you to sit. Any questions or comments on that presentation by Water Sector Trust Fund? I also want to recognize the presence of our chief guest representing the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, the Water Secretary, Engineer S.A. Alima. Why don't we appreciate you? Thank you. First time, okay. We have Fidelis. Any other? Give the microphone to Fidelis. Fidelis has been known for a long time to be working for the Water Trust Fund, but I don't know if this is the first public function you're appearing as representing water.org. Let us appreciate Tamangani. Those from WSPs, especially for the conditional liquidity support, they must know him, because if you don't know Tamangani, then you don't have your data with him. You are likely to miss.
Okay, thank you. I think just on the slide where you talked of the revolving fund, you spoke of the seed capital. So the question is, how much are you targeting from maybe the development partners and also from GOK? And when do you think this will be actualized? Thank you.
I think that is the only question. You can proceed and answer.
So thank you, Fidelis. Fidelis, as has been said, has been my colleague for a long time, and he knows how the fund works. So answering his question, Water Sector Trust Fund has no kind of a limit. We are looking forward to as much funding support as possible. So we are inviting all the development partners and all the financial institutions to support us in this. So we don't have a limit, but the maximum we can get. For the GOK, as you know, there's been some challenges, and we are still also, we don't have a target for the GOK, but we are also still, as much as the GOK can give us, then we'll be able to give out this as a seed capital. Thank you.
I would like to wade into this debate now that the representative of the Cabinet Secretary is here. We are aware that there is a strong representation here from the private sector, especially the financing institutions. As we are aware, we have a huge budgetary deficit in terms of financing the water and sanitation infrastructure. And we appreciate the role that WSTF has been playing and is playing. And this is where we require the government to give some commitment in order to assist the WSPs, because as much as we engage in the private sector, through procurement it has not been easy. And even the cost of capital, you know, we are dealing with a finite and a basic resource, which internationally it has been agreed that it has to be affordable. So the cost of capital is high because it is determined by the bank rate. But our option with the discussion with WSTF is to quickly expedite the setting up of the revolving fund. Because water.org, we are told they have in excess of Kenya shillings 30 billion. Bwana Mutiga next to you there will tell you he has around 5 billion. So banks have shown that there is around 50 billion. So as much as water sector trust funds say they don't have a ceiling, which I agree, but you should also have a minimum. We should be asking the government to look for 50 billion to match the private sector financing. Then that revolving fund would be able to run. I don't believe the government is broke. The government is never broke. We feed it day and night. It is only a matter of priority. We know there are a lot of priority areas. And if we can prioritize water, sanitation provision, because if there is a matching 50 billion, then that is 100 billion kitty. So it means the government is bringing at zero finance, the private sector is bringing at 12%. This can be given now at a rate of around 6%. So there is a win for the private sector because their money is still going at the bank rate, but it's also blended. Then it will mean absorption and uptake of this finance will be quick. You find it will take a lot of time for the private sector to hop from one utility to the other. But if this is centralized at water sector and you do the calls, then the issue of procurement is out. So with a lot of indulgence, Bwana Water Secretary, we're envisaging, and this is what we want to spearhead, at least 50 billion. I don't believe the government. We have taxes for roads and others. Why don't we prioritize it for water so that we really on development partners? Because we are talking of tariffs which utilities have, we are talking of transfers, partners. We should now also be talking of a better to complement this. So the cup of moderating and also became a participant. I now wish to take back my cup of moderation. Why don't we appreciate him? You know, when I speak, the WSPs have spoken because I represent them. Ama WSPs vipi? Ni kweli? Zungumuza sijazungumuza. Wao wanasema mimi ni atuoli wa maji. Now, anyway, this is what puts food on my table. You see, atuoli just make noise. Washenzi hawa. And he has $1 million in the bank account. You see? So everybody must know how to use his own forte. Now, without much ado, we want to slightly change the program now that we have come late. We want to end this session. And if you agree, because the chief guest is here, we move now into innovative financing by the banks, then we transit to closure instead of breaking and coming back again here. We want to make the day short. As many as of the opinion say aye, as many as of the contrary opinion say nay. So in Kenya, the nays have it. So thank you. I think it is clear. We go to, because the ayes have it, the other one was a joke, disregard it. So that I want to invite Fidelis Tamangani, who will be taking us through this session of innovative financing that promote water loss management. And as he comes, I would like to brief the Water Secretary. We have had robust discussions revolving on advanced metering infrastructure since day one, and this was preceded by an excursion. We had in excess of 150 people, is 60 kilometers away. They were able to see, went to the treatment plant where we have the bulk meters that are relaying information for the raw water and the production water. There are those who came to a DMA within town called Kipkorgot, where I'm told smart meters have been deployed with the HDP technology. The non-revenue water is 5% in that DMA, and also Kenyari around 6%. So Eldowas has heavily invested and has been supported by a lot of partners, including Standard Ventures. We have Danco Capital, among others, and even Safaricom, the giant telco company, who are here and supporting us too. So day one, the session was preceded also by a high technical panel discussion where we had Eldoret Water now giving us the rhetoric, the details behind those DMS, and they were supported in that technical discussion by Malindi and Bomet, who have adopted the same technologies in their utility. Then we transited to the opening ceremony, which was presided by the Cabinet Secretary representative, the CAS, Dr. Andrew Trimur, who was also flanked by His Excellency, the Deputy Governor of this county. Also in attendance was the chair of the CEC caucus, Engineer Festus Mangeli, our chairman, WASPA, CEO WASREB, and we also had CEO WSTF. Then we had a welcoming reception that day. So that was day one. Day two, yesterday, we had robust discussions by the technology companies, and they were giving their different type of cutting edge technology in AMI. So you had Danco, Apex, just to mention a few, Safaricom, Doshi, and also City Taps from France was represented here, and Lyson Tech from China. So we also had international participation in attendance. So they were very exhaustive, and in the afternoon we said that AMI is only one of the components in terms of management and revenue water, and we had to showcase our utilities, Nyeru Water, Meru, Kisumu, Nanyuki, and Kenya Water Institute, who gave us a number of strategies in terms of how they have been able to be where they are, the strategies that have been employed, and governance was featuring on the top, that you must have the right governance structures and systems, right from the board, management and staff of the utility, the non-revenue water unit, mapping. You also have to continually do leak detection. So those were some of the strategies that were being employed, and also rely on new technology. And I think to conclude, yesterday we also had a gala dinner, and that's why some of the chairs are missing participants here, but the room has always been full. So it was exciting. We are listening to the ground. Kwa ground vitu ni different. But we appreciate this morning. We have started with matters now of financing. So utilities have participated. The technology firms and companies have also participated. So this day has been set aside for the financing institution, because one of the objectives was to ensure we have a tripartite arrangement where the users of the technologies, the utilities, once they adopt and they define the technologies from the tech companies, then they can also access financing so that there is a quick uptake. Most of the time, the utilities know their problems, they identify the technologies, but uptake is delayed because of lack of finances. But now Bwana Muthiga is here and he has opened the basket of 5 billion, among others. I don't think that will delay. So just in a brief, that is how it has looked like. And with your permission, I want to bring in Tamangani to take us through the last session, then we come to the closure. Let's appreciate Tamangani as he comes.
Thank you, CEO. Good morning. My name is Fidelis Tamangani. I work for water.org as a senior expert, utility partnerships. So to our chief guests, the Water Secretary, Engineer Alima, the CEO of WASPA, the MDs from WSPs and CEOs from different companies that are here, technology companies, as well as from the commercial banks. Good morning. So this, I think this is the most interesting part of this conference, was as much as we have talked about issues of technologies, we have talked about the water meters, which I believe are now smart. I see Safaricom is here. They've also talked about the mobile way of doing things. Now we want to talk about how do these water companies now implement these issues with regards to non-revenue water. And I'm very happy that CEO WASPA, you chose me to be part of this. And I'll take an opportunity just to talk about water.org in the next 2 minutes, what we do and why we think we are very important in this sector. Water.org is an NGO. We are based in the US, and we operate in 3 countries in Africa. We are in Kenya, we are in Tanzania, and Uganda. And our main mandate is basically to link the WSPs, or water utilities, with commercial banks. The issue of water companies wanting to implement projects, but they do not have funds. I think our government is providing funds, but we know that it is not enough. And I think CEO Ambogo, you spoke about Kenya becoming the middle class, and that grants are really going to go down. So the best way now is to try and go into the financial sector and try to get as much money as we can so that water companies can implement their projects. So water.org, what we do is we provide the linkage between commercial banks and utilities. How do we do that? We identify commercial banks that have an appetite to lend to the water companies. And how we come in also is we provide technical assistance. So we want to train commercial banks on what the water sector is, how do they get their money, what are the issues that are needed before you can finance a water utility. So we have funds that we can give as for TI support so that we can train these managers from commercial banks. And then on the side of the water companies, we also have some funds which we can use to also train those companies on how to prepare a bankable proposal. Most of the times you do your proposal, and then when you submit to a commercial bank, it is rejected because you have not provided adequate data or information with regards to your application. So we are in that space, so that's how we come in. So without wasting time, I want to invite the panelists from National Bank. I would like to invite Motiga, who is the Senior Manager Partnerships Program. I would also want to invite from CDN Bank, John, who is the Senior Manager Branch Banking and Partnerships. I know there is Family Bank is not here. Do we have a representative from Cooperative Bank? So Mutiga, you can come. John, you can also come up. From Standard Chartered Ventures, Kennedy, the MD. If you are here, please come up. And then Untapped Judy. Panelists, what products you have and what you can offer to the water companies. So you can use that other side. Okay, thank you. So 15 minutes so that we are able to keep time.
Good morning, everyone. Water Secretary Engineer Lima, the Chairman of WASPA, CEO WASPA, all the MDs present. Good morning. On behalf of National Bank, management and NBK staff, I'm pleased to join you today on this occasion. Receive the greetings, by the way, from our Group MD, Mr. Paul Lusso, who even graced the KW function about 1 or 2 months ago. And as you may know, National Bank is a proud subsidiary of KCB Group. Paul Lusso is now the Group MD for KCB. Allow me to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation for the long and cordial relationship with WASPA and also all the water companies that we have. And this is key to what we have done as National Bank to come up with Magic Connect, a product that is taking care of water, sanitation, and hygiene. Through the years, NBK has tried to deliver innovative financing, Bwana Alima, and we are trying to meet the changing needs, especially when you talk about non-revenue water. And I believe sustainability also is a key thing. And Bwana Fidelis, if you allow me, just 3 minutes, because I also have my bosses here, just to talk about sustainability and what you want to do with the water companies before you talk about metering non-revenue water. Allow me to give my director for marketing, corporate communications, and citizenship just 3 minutes to say hi to this team and say what she's doing in terms of sustainability. Welcome, Bernadette.
Water Secretary, all CEOs present, all protocol observed. Good morning. Impromptu as it is, we have been working with county governments and water companies to plant trees. And as you know, if we plant a tree that we use today, that's not a tree, correct? We plant a tree for the generations to come. And we have been doing that by planting indigenous trees. And we urge each one of you here representing various companies that we are working with and those that we wish to work with to please approach us and give us your proposals on the various tree planting initiatives that you have. And we will be able to support you through the sustainability aspect of our business. We look at partnering with especially the water companies, because you rely on the water towers, the rain sometimes, and basically trees bring you that. So we look at partnering with you because we know you must work with the communities around you to be able to be sustainable as companies. So I'm urging each one of you to please approach us. As National Bank, we are very focused on tree planting and are very passionate about that. So, and I'm sure we have already talked to a few of you here who we have committed certain amounts of trees, which we are going to honor. And we are looking forward to various other people within the hall, excuse me, and externally to work with you in the various counties, in the various regions to plant the trees. Just maybe 1 second or two, we normally work with the forestry department to advise us on the trees that will do well in your area, indigenous trees. So we will not come to an area and give you trees that are not indigenous and are not good for that area. So it's very important that we collaborate. I'm sure most of you have already systems of how you're approaching the various ways to plant the trees. We have had a few of you talk about the bamboo, which is a fantastic tree because once you cut it, it just grows back again and it doesn't drain the water, especially around the riparian land. So we are looking at you to advise, to get to us, write please, and let's partner together. We are here for you as National Bank, banking on better always. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. I believe Engineer Lima. And by the way, today morning, CEO WASPA, I was not late. I was having a session with the Water Secretary to discuss about this financing. So, and we discussed quite a lot of, and I believe I'll not go through slides today. I'll not talk about what we are financing because I believe I've talked to each one of you, especially the WSPs, including Water Sector Trust Fund, Fidelis. By the way, chief guest, we got $10 million from Water Equity, where Fidelis works for onward lending to water companies. This we got at a very cheap rate at 4.5%. We'll be inviting you next week as we launch this fund so that all the water companies can come and access these funds. So thank you, Fidelis and Water.org, Water Equity. At the same time, we are working closely with WASLab. I can see Engineer Jaga. We are working closely with all our partners, including Safaricom, I can see them here, Earthview, City Taps, Danco, Smart People Africa, all the technology companies, because we want, in fact, as we promote SDG 6, we're also promoting SDG 17, Partnership for Goals. We want to partner with all of you, including Top Pipes, all the companies that work around water ecosystems, so that we can be able to advance this water agenda forward. I believe the NBK's proposition is well known. We are offering a full integration. We are offering collection systems. Apart from financing, we are also offering technology on how we can be able to reduce the commercial losses on the non-revenue water. And I believe with all these partnerships that we have talked about partnering, we have talked about how the WSPs can come up with case studies of what they are doing. And chief guest, even though these case studies, we have partnered with Aqua for All, who are able to cater for the cost for the feasibility studies, be able to support